What's up, everybody? We're here with Xtra Points now. This is you might have remembered Prep Spotlight back in 2014. Well, we've graduated into 2015 now, so we are in the Xtra Points era of this video. But we're back here to talk high school sports as we did throughout the football season. Hopefully everybody had a good New Year. And this is sports reporter John Barry. I'm Gazette sports editor Eric Schmoldt, and we're going to break down
high school
almost to the midpoint of the boys basketball season and just what we've seen to this point. We'll do the girls basketball next week. We're going to roll with the teams that are playing the Thursday, Saturday schedule, at least to start out with here, and the boys have that for the most part this week in terms of conference play. So,
right.
I guess just any general impressions almost at the midway point here for the boys basketball season.
Well, I think it's kind of like football. I don't think there's a dominant team that you can hang your hat on, so to speak, that's got ambitions of going, to state or something, along that level. But certainly there's teams out there that are capable of making a tournament run. I don't think there's any question about that. It's just a matter of who gets hot at the right time. Can you stay healthy and do your big players show up in big-time games and start to carry you a little bit?
Yeah, a lot of teams that seem to be still sorting out their identity, so to speak. And we'll see what happens come February, really, I guess, is when that really kicks into gear. Let's go through and kind of break down things conference by conference, and maybe we'll start right here. The Janesville team's obviously playing in the Big Eight. The Cougars and Vikings, rough starts for both of those teams to start the Big Eight season. What do you maybe need to see from them here over the next month for them to really find a groove heading into that crucial part?
Well, I think for the Cougars, and you had alluded to it in a story you covered, he's starting 4 sophomores. And let's face it, in the Big Eight Conference, I don't care how good you are, it's a senior-laden division conference, and it's been that way forever, and it's tough to win with 4 sophomores in the lineup. With that being said, I think they're going to get better. I think when you look at, Negus and Santrell are 2 kids that have been that cornerstone of that backcourt, and really somebody that Mike Miller has built that program around and hopes to build it around even more the next couple of years. Adam Onhold, a kid that Mike is really high on, a 6'7" sophomore that he feels like if he continues to grow and progress and hones his game, a kid that's got a chance to play, college basketball somewhere. So I think for Craig, it's getting on one of those streaks that we're so accustomed to with that program, is where they win 4 or 5 in a row, and it kind of catapults them into the postseason. With Parker, I worry about the Vikings. And the reason I say that is because they've beaten Craig. That's their only win. And is that enough for them? I mean, do you just hang your hat and say, hey, we beat Craig. That's something we weren't expecting to accomplish. We've done that. Are we satisfied with that? Or do they dig down and play capable basketball like they've done at times this year? We've both covered them where they've been in games, and then the fourth quarter, they hit that scoring slump and they just can't put any points on the board, and they end up losing by 8 or 10. But, I think both teams, Craig very young, but I think going to get better, and Parker just has to find some consistency. They just don't have any consistent scoring right now.
I think both two rotations have played a big role. With Craig, they're playing 8, 10, 12 guys a night and rotating through and finding the right combinations. And sometimes with Parker as well. Once he gets rolling, once Coach Ryan Masterson gets rolling through some of those rotations, just finding the ones that work best at the right times or against certain schemes, maybe that helps them get another win or two down the road.
I would agree. Yep.
And Sun Prairie sort of been the class so far. Madison Memorial surprisingly lost a couple of games early. I wouldn't be surprised if they're right there in the mix at the end. Any other teams that you see that could win the conference?
I think right now the wild card is Nick Niskoyak, the kid that's going to Marquette from Sun Prairie. Where is he? I mean,
they came out this weekend and said he posted on Facebook that he is suffering from depression. So I guess that's something that he says has been going through for months, and so it's really kind of up in the air.
And if that's the case, it's too bad. You hope he gets help, but certainly, I mean, there's a kid with his future ahead of him. He's signed to play at Marquette, and with Wojo there now, I mean, I'm sure that's something he was really looking forward to. But let's face it, if it's a mental issue and he's battling that, let's hope he gets the help and he can move on and kind of go from there. But yeah, I think East, a lot of talent. West is pretty young, not a lot of talent. Craig found a way to beat them last week. Beloit, another team that I think can play with the bottom half teams, but certainly they've struggled against the upper echelon teams in the Big Eight thus far. So I think really, like you said, Sun Prairie, certainly Memorial's going to be there at the end with Steve Collins. Every year Memorial's there. And then I think La Follette's probably the wild card, the one team that you're not sure of. they look great one night, and the next night they don't look so hot. So I think it's probably some Prairie's title to lose, especially if Niskoyak comes back, but don't be surprised if the Spartans are there at the end again.
Yep. Let's skip over to the Rock North real quick. I think a league that a lot of coaches, people in the area, thought that maybe would be a lot of parity. Maybe the champ would have 4 losses, 5 losses at the end of the year, which hasn't seemed to happen. Well, here we are a third of the way through that year, and it's McFarland 6-0. Pretty much the ball's in their court.
Yeah, and I think you look at that conference, East Troy's been good for so long, but obviously the Trojans are down. They don't have the kids that they've had in the past. I mean, let's face it, they sent somebody to Division I school the last 5 or 6 years, and they don't have that so-called aircraft carrier this year that can take them to a nice postseason run. Edgerton, I think probably, and it's probably the most disappointing team really, had everybody back from last year's team. And the Crimson Tide have really struggled.
Been hurt by a suspension, by an injury.
And everything
Obviously,
else.
they've never had all of their pieces on the court.
Pieces, and maybe that's a team that can get it together and make a run.
Evansville, interesting
with Brennan Banks, a kid that can let's face it, he can play. And Krupke's got kids there that he even said, we may be a year or two away from being really good, but that's another team to watch out, and they could be another team that's a tough out in the tournament.
Yeah, and Banks was out for a while with injury too, and they suffered a couple of their losses, and now he's back. So hopefully he can stay healthy. Is something that's kind of bugged him last year too, injuries. So hopefully he can stay healthy, and we'll see what they can do. In the South, Turner, the team that's unbeaten down there in the South, they've even got the crossover wins that nobody else has been able to really accomplish.
Well, and I got a chance to watch Turner play, and Alec Fruin, the sophomore, is as good a player as I've seen this year. It's kind of funny how the 2 of the better players I've seen this year on the boys' side are Brennan Banks and Alec Fruin, and they're both sophomores. Yeah. So it tells you about the future is pretty bright. But I think when you look at it, I would say the South is probably maybe not quite as balanced as the North. Doesn't mean those teams can't play with the teams from the North, because I think they can. But Broadhead's a little bit down. Certainly Bigfoot's down. Parkview.
Lost a lot from last year.
So in Clinton,
that's the team that probably could give Turner the run.
Yeah, I think when you look at the South, Clinton's the one team where if they play well, I watched them the other night against Parkview. The first quarter they were dynamite. I mean, they looked great, and then they just kind of went into that mode where they almost expected things to happen, and you got to keep playing hard, and you can't just expect once you get a lead that's all that's going to matter and you're going to win, because the Cougars were pushed to the brink by the Vikings and finally pulled away at the end. So I think the Rock South, certainly Clinton and Turner, are the 2 teams to watch the second half.
Over in the Lakes, I think I'm the only one that's seen Badger so far, but they've got their coach back. Forrest is back over there, and he's got them kind of running again. They've got some great talent. Lincoln Wiesman's a really nice player. They're right up there in the Southern Lakes, and maybe he could make a run at it.
Well, and let's face it, Forrest Larson knows what he's doing. He's had success wherever he's been. He's back at Badger. Certainly Burlington's a team. I know Bob Baton at Delavan speaks very highly of Burlington, said they've got a nice mix of players that play pretty well together. So, if Badger could make a run and overcome Burlington, it'd probably be the feel-good story of the year, just because here's Forrest returning to his roots and having those guys, right now among the conference leaders.
Elsewhere there, Delavan Darien's a fun team to watch.
They
if
are.
You get a chance, and a scary team to play if they can get those threes rolling. Don't really have the size to really compete for a conference championship, but a team that can spoil somebody's season.
And I think, and Bob talked about the other night, if we could get Jesse Collins back to maybe 80% or 85%, boy, that sure would help, because he's so athletic and he's such a good shooter. Where right now they've got scorers, but like you said, they get hurt on the defensive end, and they certainly get hurt on the boards because they just don't have any size.
Yeah, and it doesn't sound like Collins is going to play this year.
No, it didn't sound too optimistic, no.
Any other players that just kind of caught your eye here in the first half?
Well, I think when you look in a general sense, certainly James Fox, a kid that can fill it up and score, but Edgerton's got to find somebody else to complement him, or teams are just going to focus on Fox and not let him beat you, and somebody else is going to have to. And I think when you look in Janesville, again, it's the young kids, but it's kids that, Jake Negus, a kid that in the last couple of weeks,
he's turning
it up. He's scoring more, and he's making plays. And I think a lot of times the problem with those kids is, so much pressure is put on their shoulders because they were anointed, so to speak, as the future of Craig basketball. And they both started as sophomores, played a lot as freshmen, and that pressure can get you a little bit, and maybe now they're just relaxing, playing basketball and not worrying so much about everybody's, what everybody thinks. And, certainly Santrell Payton, another kid that he's got a lot of skills. Anhold, a kid that, like Mike said, as he develops and gets stronger and, learns the game a little bit more, he's a kid to watch out for as well. I think when you look at Parker, they've been so helter-skelter and so up and down that, again, they need to find that kid that can give them 12, 15 a game and do it on a consistent basis.
Probably would be remiss. I don't think we're going to have another video before then. The rematch with Parker and Craig coming up.
Yes.
I kind of expect Craig to come out pretty fired up after the way they lost that last game, but what do you maybe expect
Well,
to see?
I do too, but again, Parker now knows they've formed the mold, so to speak, on how to beat Craig, and why would you deviate from that? My guess is Parker will do exactly what they did last time, come out in the zone and say, look, if you're going to beat us, you're going to have to make threes. And if they don't do that and they don't make any attempt to get the ball down low, then I think Craig's frustrated and things, happen at that point. But I would agree with you. I would expect the Cougars playing better of late. The Vikings, that's the only win they've got. They've struggled. I think more than anything with Parker, it's just learning how to win, and they just haven't learned how to win yet. And Coach Masterson will tell you that. He said, we have to get to the point where when games are close, these kids have enough confidence that we can get over the hurdle and get a win.
Sounds good. That should do it for our first one here. In 2015, you can follow us on Twitter at BearZakow1, at Eric Schmoldt. You can probably find us through at Gazette Extra as well. We're tweeting from games that we're at on a nightly basis. And we'll be back here next week to break down what we've seen so far in the girls' basketball season. Have a good week, everybody.
Take care, everybody.